The quality of your entire life is determined by the quality of your communication. All aspects of it. It's a gating factor. I don't care what's going on in here and how great it is. If you can't transmit data reliably and receive data reliably, you're running a monolith in a distributed environment. I classify them as there's kind of three types of communication. And this first one is kind of controversial. Like, people don't think about that, but there's intrapersonal communication. There's how you talk to yourself. There's interpersonal communication, which is how most people see communication. It's how you can communicate to someone else. And then there's the third one, which is group communication, how you communicate to groups. One secret is group communication doesn't really exist. Groups are just groups of individuals. So when I'm communicating to you at any point in time, I feel like I'm communicating to whoever's on my screen right now. These inform each other. If you communicate unkindly to yourself, you're likely to communicate unkindly to others when you're under stress, because that's your natural state. If you make an effort to communicate to people, let's say in a very patient way, you will eventually learn to be patient with yourself. So those things inform each other. There needs to be a balance, or else it's too much work to change configuration modes for all these communication use cases, I guess. Only 7% of what you say matters in the grand scheme of the message that others receive from you, because your tone of voice is conveyed when you have when you have audio. And then what's more, the reason why we love video is your body language comes through. So people can tell so much by what you're trying to say when they can see you. There are passive communicators, people that want to say something, but they don't say it. They're shy. They can't say it. They think it's wrong, whatever. We all have certain situations where we might be passive communicators. I would say just try to minimize that as much as you can. Aggressive communication, we all know, not great. Sometimes it works. If there is a crisis, there's a production emergency, someone needs to take charge, someone needs to drive in the situation, that's fine. But most of the time, it's not appropriate. And there's passive aggressive communication, which is sort of better than the other two, but still not great, which is kind of grumbling, like, no, it's okay, whatever. Instead of showing your aggression, to kind of let it leak out a little bit. The one that we want to go for is assertive. That's the unicorn, is be direct, be respectful. Whatever you say should value mutual respect first, and then give the truth. Say what needs to be said. Say it as directly and respectfully as possible. Understand that you're not speaking for everyone. You are only giving us the output of your model. You're only giving us the conclusions that you came to, and that's okay. Don't attempt to control it or play like a chess game. If they say this, I'll say that. It makes things seem very salesy, and it actually inhibits authentic communication where meaning is created. This is kind of how I look at it. When you talk about communication getting across, right? There's multiple layers, and you can only get to the next layer if your first layer is efficient. At the bottom of the communication pyramid is just raw communication. So I see that as the data layer. So someone is transmitting information that is predetermined, like a fact. They're making a statement. They know what they're going to say, right? It needs to be high fidelity, compressed, and omni-channel. Something you would say in person wouldn't necessarily be a pleasant Slack read, having someone send you 2 paragraphs in Slack. So optimize for the channel. On the receiving side, in this layer of communication, you should be acknowledging things that you understand them. You should do error correction. So when someone says something that you actually think is not factual, you should say, hey, but no, I actually saw this, so let's get that right. Now what happens is, if you communicate very well at the data layer, then you get to have conversations. And conversations is at the protocol layer, where they're adaptive. What you're doing is it has a rhythm to the conversation, where you want to get people's feedback on certain things. You want to get people to think in a different way. So you have to take it a little bit slower, be more adaptive, be flexible in your thinking. if you are on the receiving side, if someone is trying to converse with you on something, your responsibility is to sort of guide them to what they want to say. What that gives you in the end is meaning. What's the point of this conversation? What did we just learn? What are we going to do differently? How are we going to see the world differently based on what we just discussed? What steps are we going to take? You have made an investment in future communication with this person. Now there's a bond. And that's why it's worth, doing all of that. So that's how I look at it. Not all the time, but when you really break it down, you can understand that, like, how all these things build on each other to get us to the point where we can find meaning in our interactions and in our communication.